Jane, let's get into our top fives. You ready?
Yes, and I sweated over this list. People, you don't know how hard it was to narrow this down to a top five.
Just again, pulling back the curtain. I even offered Shane to be like, maybe we could do a combined top 10. Maybe we'll get more shows in that way, and maybe it'll erase some of the confusion or some of the hard decisions. I tried everything.
You did.
And this is the difference between you and I that we find every year. And I preamble this every time we do a top five, either mid-year or end of year with TV. Generally speaking, you lap me when it comes to TV. You end up, if you are already not like first day viewer of the big shows of the year, you usually cover a lot of them. Like the fact that I never have watched one episode of Severance, White Lotus, all these kind of like big name shows, you're usually on those.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of these, big shows that premiere in a given year that are like either the miniseries or whatever, a lot of times if I don't get to them, that's you too.
Yeah.
So I looked at my list and especially what I was drawing from. And while I watched a decent amount for my own perspective, obviously I watched a lot more movies this year, but drawing from my list, it was hard to make a five. You actually watched some of the shows that when I watch, the major TV critics, you've seen all those shows or most of those shows.
Mm-hmm.
The two outliers, even for both of us, I think that I see on everyone's top fives, if not like tippity tops, we don't watch Andor and we haven't watched an episode of The Pit.
Correct.
So far as I know.
Correct. You are right.
So if you're like, look at these clowns making top five lists and they're not going to cover like the biggest, like the Emmy blockbusters or the Golden Globe nominated this, that, and whatever. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like if that, is, a big sticking point with you, I apologize. We can come back, and we cover more movie centric stuff in the next couple weeks and get our big list or our drafts and all those things that we do at the end of the year for that. You can come back for those. But we're going to have some fun here.
Yeah.
We're going to get into our top fives here. And because you are the master of TV, I will have you kick us off with your number five.
Okay.
So give it to us straight.
Yeah, my number five. And just to let you people know, and Andrew said this, I had an original list of 28 shows. I was trying to pare down to five. So let's
now, is that 28 you're just like, I liked these? Like, were there any shows that you were just like dismissed and didn't make that list?
Correct. These are just shows I liked. These were shows.
So 28 was the short list.
Was the short list, yes. So this is a show that we covered recently. And I've come around to it because, again, I've been thinking about this for like all weekend. I've been sweating this. But my number five is the Ethan Hawke driven The Lowdown. The more I thought about this show, and I really did like it, I think it comes down to his performance and the Coen brothers style of storytelling that this show presented to us. I just kind of fell in love with it. The more I thought about it, the more I did really enjoy it. It had highs of highs. We talked about the Peter Dinklage episode. So the Lowdown is my number five show of the year.
Yeah, obviously a show that when we talked about it, I loved.
Yep.
And this is on my list as well. It is my number three show. This is for anyone who doesn't know, this is FX, Hulu, however you ingest it, the new show from the guys who did Reservation Dogs. And it's, if you love like you mentioned, obviously the Coen brothers stuff, but also like Elmore Leonard or these kind of pulpy stories where, small town ish intrigue, or at least small time detectives. This guy's a truth historian. The whole, he's a lover of where he lives and takes pride in taking down people who are going to ruin his life, his community, the people he cares about, and really sticks it to this high powered family that is taking over the area, and it ends up dealing with church stuff and everything else. There's a lot of really distinct characters and characterization. And you mentioned Peter Dinklage, but Keith David was absolutely amazing in this show.
Terrific.
Too. Loved seeing him back. He was one of the best character actors, and just I mean, we've been watching him for what, 40 years now?
40 years.
That
yeah.
we're just like, this guy is just amazing. Do you have like a particular thing for him that sticks out, like where you know him for, like when you close your eyes and
come
picture
on,
Keith
man.
David, where
It's the alleyway brawl with Roddy Piper, and They Live. Or They.
yeah, sure,
Right?
yeah,
That was it.
They Live.
That was the movie I
Yep.
fell in love with him. That was one of the best on-screen movie fights you'll ever see in your entire life. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, South Park did a parody of it with Timmy and oh god, Timmy and Jimmy, where it was the quote cripple fight that they said that was hilarious that they did in full They Live mode. But I also the first thing I think I saw him in that I fell in love was Men at Work
with Charlie Sheen. Yeah, Emilio Estevez. Yeah.
He is such like the hard ass, who just has every funny line in that movie. That I was just like, this is my guy.
Yeah.
But this is, again, he's amazing in this show. A great kind of companion. He's not a detective, but he's kind of in that private security a little bit. And yeah, this show is it's right up my alley. So yeah, this one is number 3 for me. But number 5 for me, after much debate, and I even let you behind the curtain for that one too, I'm going to go with Dope Thief. Dope Thief has easily one of my favorite performances of the year in Brian Tyree Henry. You're seeing all the love for Wagner Moura right now as he's getting nominations left and right for his role in The Secret Agent this year. And if you haven't seen him, he's absolutely terrific in this show. Very good actor. And just their relationship, their friendship, their longstanding stuff that you have here mixed in with a story about, kind of 2 small-time crooks who end up getting crossed into one of the largest drug distribution networks and undercover, is it FBI?
Yeah.
Yeah, undercover FBI agents that are covering the drug trade, and just it just gets so messy and it's so electric. And when they're on the run, like there's nothing better. The high highs early of this show, while it does dip a little in the middle, or at least kind of spins its wheels, when it closes, especially we just talked about shows recently where their penultimate episode might be our favorite episodes of the year. That's this too, where that episode where he's in the hospital and the guy's drawing him out while the hospital is basically falling apart or being destroyed from within, and he's all alone. And it looks almost like it's been like run through The Walking Dead, practically falling apart, and the lights are blinking and he can barely walk and he's, handcuffed or whatever. Terrifying and beautiful stuff. Loved it. Loved all that. And just one of the high highs. Apple TV Plus, if you haven't caught this show, produced and I think has maybe a few episodes directed by Ridley Scott.
He directed the premiere. I know that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, geez, just such talent left and right on this show. So check out Dope Thief. That was definitely one of our favorites that we covered earlier on in the year. So what's your number 4?
Number 4 is one of my only hangovers from my mid-season card. In fact, this was my number 1 show mid-season, and it's dropped to number 4. And we're going back to the Applewell people. This is the Jon Hamm vehicle, Your Friends and Neighbors. Love
another one I didn't watch.
Yep, love that show. Jon Hamm, Olivia Munn, Amanda Peet. He plays like a hedge fund manager who gets fired, so he ends up, to maintain his lifestyle, he ends up robbing his wealthy neighbors just to kind of keep up with the Joneses. But I thought the story was well written. This is Jon Hamm at his best. I thought it was very funny in parts. He brought that emotion and just charisma to the screen. I just love the story. I love the connection with him and Amanda Peet in this show. Again, it's well worth it. Apple just kind of, we talked about them last time. They just kind of, man, they just crush their shows, man. And I feel like this is a show that a lot of people just didn't watch as much as they should have. Because when I watched it, I was telling people, oh, you should. They're like, what? But yeah, man, this is, and it sets up for season 2 if they want. So it kind of like resolves its story fully. so it works as a season finale or a series finale. I was fine with it, but man, you're here for John Hamm and John Hamm only. Like this is he crushes this role. I loved it. So that is my number 4.
Yeah, that was definitely a show that we kind of, even before it started, it was like a lot of people are saying this might be one of the best shows of the year. So I definitely have to stay tuned. So I'm glad you brought that to everyone's attention when we covered it for the midseason, and I'm glad it's staying on your list here for that. Because again, we talk off air about this too. Apple TV Plus had an excellent year. It obviously has a lot of our favorite shows on there between Slow Horses or Shrinking or any of these other ones. And then every time they roll out a new show, it's at least interesting, if not ends up on some kind of list like this. So they're definitely climbing the charts with what they do over there, trying to be, everybody was like, oh, they're always trying to be the new HBO. It's like, well, now HBO is being sold. So maybe this is their time. Yeah. My number 4 is a show I know we both liked. This is Netflix's version of Dope Thief in a way, doing a more family version, a throwback version. Black Rabbit. So this is Netflix miniseries, star-studded, leading off with Jude Law and Jason Bateman as these two brothers who are owners of a New York City hotspot that the more of a fuck up brother in Jason Bateman comes back into town. He owes money everywhere. He owes money to the wrong people. His brother gets involved, but we think that, all right, well, the good brother's helping the more, down low, seedier brother and trying to help him out. And then you kind of see that, Jude Law's got skeletons in his closet and how these all go, and that, there's a lot of family drama, past history with the father and their mother and abuse and all these things that all get tied up into, just this underbelly, like crime syndicate stuff going on and who they owe the money to. And it's nonstop anxiety.
Yes.
In the best way. It has a little bit of like I said, it's like the cleaner, stronger version of Dope Thief in some ways, and then also adds in like your grittier anxiety of like an Uncut Gems or something like that. So if you like those type of things, or you just like Jude Law and Jason Bateman being absolutely incredible, be sure to do that. And there's a lot of like, we talked about it when it was on, that the sheer amount of like just people in here that we're like, oh, I love that guy, or oh, I love that person, or oh, I've never seen that person. That person's amazing. Like you can mention 6 or 7 characters deep of this type of show and just be like, wow, this is just a deep, deep roster. And I care about all these people in some way. They do a great job of just filling out the story and having every storyline matter. When we were just talking about Fallout, like we're like, they couldn't even in one episode make me care about every storyline. This one, for all 8 episodes, had me in at every moment.
I agree.
So that is my number 4.
Good choice, my friend.
Is this not on your list?
Not on my list.
Interesting. Again, you have a stacked roster, so that's fascinating. Go for it. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Alien Earth, another FX Hulu vehicle.
I was shocked this was kind of low for you.
Yeah, you want to talk about putting, we always draw parallels between Alien and Predator, and Noah Hawley just knocked this out of the park. I think he put Alien back on track with the world building that he does within this show. And we always talk about certain episodes. Episode 5 in this first season is one of the best alien things you'll ever see in your life. Like, just... and again, it has one of my favorite actors in it with Timothy Olyphant. You have the whole Wendy and the Lost Boys, Peter Pan parallel here, which works. But man, you want to talk about just action and storytelling and just setting this up for something down the line. Every episode was almost movie quality. And I love the way they landed the plane properly in this, because it did get greenlit for a second season. And if it didn't, then I would have been highly upset. But if you're a fan of like the Alien franchise, he gives you everything you need here. Just like the battles between the Waytech and the other big companies in this movie, and the way they kind of like divided the world. and the questions of like the synthetic, cyborg in here as well, played by Babu Cisse. I probably butchered his name, but he was fantastic. The dynamic between him and Timothy.
He's my favorite part, probably.
Yeah.
Him and Oliphant
Him
are
and
like
Oliphant
just on heaters.
Are on heaters. So yeah, this show really locked me in. And again, episode 5, where I think it's like no one can hear something, but it was great. And so yeah, Alien Earth lands at number 3 on my list.
When you were loading up saying, one of your favorite actors is in this, I was like, oh, he's talking about the eyeball with the spider body.
Which
right?
should get a nod, because that thing was awesome. He was his own character, and just, again, one of those aspects they bring different alien life forms that were cool in this. And I just love everything about this show.
Yeah, and you also, I know it doesn't hurt to have like Tool playing at the end of an episode, or some kind of soundtrack drop.
Bangers
like,
at the end of every episode. Bangers.
Yeah, he loves doing that. And especially like if you're even just like, maybe you've been sitting out of Alien for a while, maybe you didn't like the Shane Black, or you didn't like some of the later sequels or whatever. This is literally right before the first Alien movie. So if this is something where you're just like, oh, I watched the first 2 Alien movies and I kind of checked out, you can get into this and still be right there.
Yep.
Right back. So
and you should.
Not a bad way to go for that one. I already mentioned my number 3, The Lowdown. So why don't you give us your number 2 as well?
This is a show we covered last week. So, recently biased maybe, but it's Welcome to Derry. It's Welcome to Derry.
That's my number 2 as well.
Is my number 2. I mean, we talked ad nauseum about the show last week, so there's not much for me to fill in, but it was a perfect world building to Pennywise in the whole Stephen King universe, which again is debatable whether we want these things connected or not. But just the kid actors, the storytelling, emotional. That episode 7 is like the highest of highs. So yeah,
probably one of the best episodes of the year.
Yep. So that falls in at number 2 for me.
Yeah, same here. Like you said, we talked about it extensively last week. So if you want the full breakdown, be sure to go back to last week's episode and hear us really talk about the entire season, as much as we also talked about how it ended and where the universe stuff is going to go. But like I said back then, the beauty of this show is that you could be disappointed with it, chapter 2. You could be like, I don't know if I want to re-enter this universe because of it. I had those same feelings and I went into it and I love this show. And like you said, all the performances were stellar. All the storylines, like basically 90% of the storylines work exceptionally well. And the fever pitch of episode 7 is worth every penny. The amount of true horror versus like keeping it with kid gloves, literally, because you're going from the kid perspective on a lot of this horror. They don't like, it's movie quality and it's a lot.
Yep.
And it's terrifying. So if you want to get into it, it is right there with it chapter 1 as far as like the best stuff. And as we mentioned, Skarsgård is back doing Pennywise, so there's no loss. And in fact, this might be his best version of Pennywise to date. So if all of that sounds good, be sure to check that out on HBO. You're number 1, sir. We're already right down to the nitty gritty, because we'll probably spend like 30 minutes on honorable mentions. So go for number 1, because I know for certain we do not have the same.
Correct. This is a show we talked about last week as well, because the new trailer dropped, and it is the Hulu original Paradise, the Sterling K. Brown driven Paradise with Juliana Nicholson and the very underrated James Marsden. I've talked at length about the show several times throughout our podcast, so I don't want to belabor my point, but it's just a nice blending of genres, well written. The back and forth between Sterling K. Brown and Juliana Nicholson is fantastic, especially when they're on screen together. Just, I love the storytelling. Again, the blending of genres. And it was Sterling K. Brown was so gripping and demanding, and just such an on-screen presence. Like I love that guy, and he just like does hell of a work here. So, yeah, I'm still gonna hold strong Paradise, man. Like it was my number 2 at midseason. But after, again,
I was about to bring this up.
it was my,
That shocked me. You took your one down and then your two went up.
Again, I was really thinking about this list and going through my head and the highs and the lows and just about all these shows I was considering. And I just, at the end of the day, it came down to the writing. And again, you talk about soundtrack, like the music in this show is so great. And James Marsden, again, I think he's just very underappreciated as an actor. He's been in loads of good stuff that people don't even realize he was in. And I just love his portrayal as the president here. So that is my number one, man, which I know is not a lot of people's list is number one, but it's my number one.
No, it's incredible. It is, like we mentioned when we talked about the trailer last week. Like, this is a show that a lot of people are at least impressed with and looking forward to the second season. And then there are people who are like, this is, in their top fives for the year at least, because this show's garnering a lot of awards attention. Mm-hmm. So it's coming back into people's consciousness at the right time, right as the new season will be dropping soon enough. So that's great timing for them. I look forward to trying my best to watch season 1 so I can get on the season 2 train, and maybe we'll have a larger discussion here on the pod when that drops as well. But yeah, a lot of people I like, so I'm interested in that. And obviously knowing that it does get a little sci-fi, it gets a little, it's political, right? Yep. In some way. Yep. It's got a lot of different stuff, as you mentioned, a real genre blend. So that intrigues me. I'm hoping that it's definitely worthy of the number one spot, and that I'll be kicking myself that I didn't watch it before the list came out for this year. My number one is my same number one from mid-season. This is a show that it was well watched, but I feel like, again, people didn't talk about it in some grander thing, but it is something that got renewed. It is something that is repeatable, and it's also done by one of the best screenwriters and TV show creators, showrunners in Scott Frank. This is Department Q, and this is on Netflix. Incredible show. Matthew Good as this former top-rated detective who's kind of fallen back following an attack that left his partner paralyzed and another policeman dead. So it kind of has this dual storyline of trying to solve his own attack and the murder and the assault that happened on the job, while also, when he returns to work, being assigned to a cold case and kind of having his own small little ragtag group of collective minds to run this department that will concentrate on one cold case that they could try to solve, a high profile one. And they really go full detail on that crime. Like, a lot of times you kind of just see them trying to figure it out and get in bits and pieces. You get to actually see this person being held hostage and what's going on and her full story as well. And it really pays off. And just, it's an impressive cast. Again, a lot of people I didn't know outside of Matthew Good. Now I'm fully on board, having characters that almost feel like the Watson to his Sherlock. And, if you've never heard of Scott Frank, or you don't know the name per se, the man's been at least two-time Oscar nominated, and then now has really done an excellent job in TV the last few years with The Queen's Gambit, which was a huge deal. And then obviously Monsieur Spade, which was on AMC, and now Department Q. So that's only just in the last few years. But the man wrote Logan. The man wrote Out of Sight. He's one of the best screenwriters around. Be sure to check out this show. It is extremely bingeable, because Netflix. But a show that if you slept on this back in the end of May, because it came out around Memorial Day-ish, don't sleep on it now. Get on this now. This is my favorite show of the year.
Very good. Very solid list, sir.
Again, for the fact that I'm not really crushing the tape as much as I should, the fact that and here's what interests me, and we'll probably get to some of it in the honorable mentions, but I did mention when we talked about it, Welcome to Derry, previously, that somehow HBO must be they have a dartboard with my face on it, where it's dude, you're covering this stuff, you're putting together lists for the end of the year, and yet you haven't watched an episode of The Pitt, Task
I know.
or any of like these some like larger show that people are putting on their lists, as far as, and obviously getting nominated and having all these performances that people are talking about. So I do feel bad about that. But to their credit, if I'll kick off the honorable mentions, the two that were side by side with Dope Thief for my number 5 that I was really clawing my eyes out about was Peacemaker, which had some incredible highs that at right before the finale, I said, holy hell, this might be challenging for the best of the year. And then they fumbled that ending so badly that it made it fall off the list entirely.
Yeah.
But it was close. And so again, HBO, so great job with that. Hopefully, in your new pursuits of what's coming next, that this doesn't get lost. But unfortunately, I think this is kind of the end of Peacemaker anyway. So that kind of crushes us too. Or at least it's going to go in a new direction, possibly. It's very muddled. Again, more reasons why I ended up inevitably keeping it off the list. But, that and The Bear for me were the two other ones that were kind of like that tie-ish for 5. But again, another show where we were like, highest of highs. The wedding episode's incredible. It's one of the best episodes of television this year. And yet, between the finale and some of the spinning wheel stuff in the midst of it, and the fact that it felt like a carryover of season 3 where it should have been combined and kind of reformulated, that kind of fell off the list for that. But of course, we like that show quite a bit. And if they make a season 5, even without Jeremy Allen White, we'll probably end up watching it anyway.
We will.
So what else you got? Honorable mentions.
I'll tell you, I got a lot of them, but I will just narrow it down to
same.
Right. But like the two that just fell out of my top 5, but the first two I have on there is the aforementioned Task, the HBO vehicle, Mark Ruffalo and Tom Pelphrey. I was slow to the game on this one. I watched the premiere episode and I thought, it's okay, but it didn't really draw me in. And then like a couple months later, I was like, I just ended up watching it all over the course of a weekend. And the second episode on just sucked me right in. The whole Mark Ruffalo, troubled FBI agent, like assigned to this task force, the head of this task force, these random people. The storytelling of Tom Pelphrey's character. This show draws a lot of parallels to Dope Thief in a way, which I think you'd really like, because Tom Pelphrey and his friend end up like robbing the wrong trap house. Stuff kind of like breaks loose from there, and now they're being like hunted.
And it's also in Philadelphia.
It's also like in the outside of Philadelphia. But man, the cat and mouse game between Tom Pelphrey's character and Mark Ruffalo, just fantastic TV. And again, it had highs of highs, and I thought it ended really well. It didn't really have a letdown or a bad episode. Like, it just kept building on itself. So that just missed out. And I think the other show that I loved, even though the subject matter shouldn't be funny, but the show was darkly funny, and that was Dying for Sex with Michelle Williams. Michelle Williams and Jenny Slate. She plays she has breast cancer, stage 4. Her time's limited. She just up and leaves her husband after being married 15 years and just kind of rediscovers her sexuality. And Jenny Slate plays her best friend, trying to help her with her endeavors. Michelle Williams just blows the screen up. Like, she's a great actress to begin with, but just the poignant moments in this show with her facing her mortality, but yet it was so funny and just so good. And I don't think a lot of people ended up seeing this show. This was another FX Hulu vehicle. So those are my top 2 that just missed out on my top 5 list.
Yeah, I feel like that's getting some performance love when it comes to award stuff. So maybe people would be seeking that out again.
Right.
So I'm glad that you mentioned it once more, so that way we can get some more people to watch it, and hopefully maybe I can get to it as well. I also know that you had on the mid-season, you also had, your standbys in terms of Righteous Gemstones and Reacher.
Yep.
And then you're, of course, watching one of the most critically acclaimed shows of the year. Adolescence was on your last list as well. So, that's definitely one that a lot of people caught and a lot of people really enjoyed. But, it's one of those shows that's incredibly hard to watch. And
tough watch.
And yeah. So I'm sure it's worth mentioning still here in honorable mentions.
Yep.
I also had Reacher too,
Me
because
too.
we just love that
Yeah.
show. The mainstays, some that are now canceled and some that aren't, pretty much held serve, at least. Like, at least intrigued us enough between Reacher, Slow Horses, English Teacher, and Poker Face, and even Gen V had its moments to where we were like really into it, and we're like still into it if it's gonna keep going. Or if in the case of English Teacher and Poker Face are now and the Bear obviously is very different probably going forward. These ones I'm still going to stick with, if they weren't canceled, but now unfortunately a few of them are canceled. But we just love those shows. They're pretty much going to always be kind of hanging around, and the best of their seasons will probably end up on a top 5 very easily, usually towards the top. But this is a year where a lot of them were just good, but there was better.
Right.
So that's the unfortunate part of that. And I also wanted to shout out, because I forgot it. It was on my list and I didn't mention it in the midseason. The Residents, Netflix. They also canceled this, and I was mad because this season was so fun. It's like, it's done by it's in the Shondaverse. If you're into like Bridgerton or any of his other ones, that's the same writing team who did that. But this is just kind of like a lighter, bouncier version of a whodunit story. Very bingeable, extremely bingeable show that is just a murder at the White House during a big lavish event, and you get the inside scoop between the residences and all the main characters of the White House staff, including the president and dignitaries that are in town, and all these people who might have their hands in having someone die on the premises. And it's just so fun. Uzo Aduba from Orange is the New Black, she plays the detective in this. And at first I was like, ooh, this is going to be weird, and I don't know if I like this. And by the time it really got rolling, I really liked her. But honestly, the story was so well done. A lot of the performances are so good around her too, that just this is as an ensemble so good. Her chemistry, I remember with her and Randall Park specifically, was very good. Mm-hmm. So check out that show as well. But all in all, man, super good year of TV. And like I said, we didn't even participate in ones that might have been even better on our list.
Yeah, it was a great year. Like I said, I had 28 shows I was trying to pare down, and it just was, It was tough, man. Because like I said, there's shows that Apple killed it. Like we didn't even mention The Studio, which we both really loved. The Seth Rogen
on my
vehicle.
mid-season list. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So that's out there. The Beast in Me, which was, there's just so much good TV this year. That's why I think I drifted more towards that than the movies this year. I just found TV to be very strong year for TV this year. So